Melburnians have been eagerly awaiting for the golden age of Circus. Circus 1903 is coming to town, well, January the 3rd. It'll see Circus 1903 open at the Regent Theatre here in Melbourne to what is a huge concept, brought to life by producers Simon Painter and Tim Lawson. Simon Painter's on the line to have a chat to us about the production, what it's entailed, what's going on. It's making it a premiere here in Australia, and he's online right now. Good to have you with us, pal. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Great to be in Melbourne.
Yeah, thanks for the time, Simon. It's really, really good. You're a great visionary, aren't you, in what you do?
Well, we certainly like doing things that are larger than life, yes.
Well, you've done that a few times now, haven't you? This is not the first time. You've had illusions, haven't you, overseas in America? And
Indeed. So we run a show called The Illusionists, which has been very popular in Australia. It's currently on Broadway, and we've done lots of big circuses over the years. So this is not our first show, but it's certainly probably our grandest, I think.
Well, with this particular show, what do you set out to achieve in it?
Well, from the very beginning, I looked at sort of the market, and everyone's sort of seen these huge circ shows, and we've certainly produced a few of them ourselves. And what I realised is that the audiences really want to see people flying through the air about to maybe injure themselves and be on the edge of their seats throughout the entire performance. And so when we looked back at history, of these incredible shows that happened at the turn of the last century, it was all about that. It was all about the decadence, the showmanship, the grandeur. And so I wanted to produce a show that was really about that. It was just purely there to entertain, just like those old circuses were.
Well, I think you've got something in saying all of that, because as a kid, and I grew up in the late 1940s, and in the 1950s we had a circus here in Melbourne called Worth's Circus. And it was at the area where the Arts Centre in Melbourne is now standing. And you'd go along to Worth's Circus there and see what you're saying here. And this is what you're doing now. You're taking us right back to that era of when the circus was really, really pure.
Absolutely. And so, obviously, Circus Leigh came along, and we produced some other shows that are similar to that as well, where, it's much more of a narrative, and some of them you're sort of exploring the inner workings of a clown's soul. And whilst that was fantastic, I think that the thing that I like most is seeing people do incredibly extraordinary things on stage. And certainly when these huge circuses, and when these circuses used to travel in 1903, I mean, I had no idea, but 1,200 people and 700 animals would go to a different city every single day as part of and it was just the incredible human endeavour of doing that really captivated us and the whole creative team. So we wanted to build a show that really harked back to that time when it was just about being bigger and better and more fantastic, and it was less about sort of trying to tell a story.
Yes, I noticed that. I was reading some of the blurb on this yesterday, and I was noting there that you're talking about all of those things, and you're trying to get the entertainers there, and they're the people who are really getting across to your audience, aren't they?
Absolutely. And, we pride ourselves on finding the greatest acts in the world. And for me, that's always the lowest common denominator.
Yes.
You have the most amazing costumes, lights, sets, tents, all the rest of it. But what we're trying to do is find acts that really no one's seen before, and at the very, very top of the game. And try and bring back that sort of just, focus in on the showmanship and the entertainment and the comedy, and make that really pure and really amazing, and have the entire audience on the edge of their seats from start to finish.
I was reading somewhere about you, and not to quote you directly, but in a roundabout way, you've said that when you strip away all the lights and the glamour and the curtains, everything else, you've got to have that act there that can really pull the audience in, and that's what you've been successful in doing.
Totally, and I think the audience these days are really perceptive about that because of shows like America's Got Talent and The X Factor. People know good entertainment, and the audiences are very sophisticated. I mean, you've had a lot of circus in Melbourne, so when we bring a show to Australia, we want to make sure the acts are the very best of the best of the best, and stuff that people just have not seen before. And there's quite a few things in this show that I think will be an absolute world's first for Australia, like these gigantic elephants that we've got in the show.
Well, I was going to mention the elephants because that's where Melbourne's Docklands have come into it, haven't they? I think we created the elephants there.
Well, they were created in London, but they've been rehearsed for the last month here. So we are bringing the elephants back to the circus, but don't panic because they're not real. It's a mother and a baby, and they're made by the same puppeteers who helped create the Warhorse horses. So they're actually puppets operated by incredible puppeteers. And we really wanted to bring the elephants back to the circus because back then, having an elephant in the circus was the most exotic thing you could possibly imagine.
That's right.
Especially before TV and zoos and all those things. if you lived in the middle of nowhere and you'd never seen an elephant, imagine what that would have been like if you'd woken up on a Tuesday morning and suddenly there was an elephant walking down the high street.
Now, the mother elephant here had a baby elephant, and that was conceived, of course, as part of all of this. And you went around the nation to get a name for the baby.
Yes, we did. I wasn't allowed to name it, sadly.
Oh.
So I had a few options, but I was outvoted by my other producers. So we had a nationwide competition, and a lovely young girl won, and she named it Karanga, which I'm told is Swahili for peanut.
Is it really?
Apparently so.
Karanga.
I hope it's that and not something else.
Well, if it's rather rude, you're in trouble. If it's not, you're good.
Yes, no, but apparently it's Swahili for peanut, which is fantastic. So the baby is now called Karanga, which is great.
Now, you've got a number of scenes in this. I was reading that the first act takes the audience behind scenes. What are we going to see in that?
Well, whilst there's sort of no narrative theme in terms of a story, we did want to show the audience what it was like to tour with a circus and the great Hugh and Eleven. I mentioned earlier, how many people toured with the show. So, when you hear people complaining now about hard work, if you were a circus act back then and you were part of this 1,200-person company that toured from a town to town, you would travel overnight on a train. You would probably wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. You would process from the train to the site where the tent would be going up. You would then build the town. So all the performers would help with this. They'd put billboards around the town, these paperboards saying the circus was coming. They'd help erect the tent. They'd help sell tickets. They'd help sell merchandise. They'd put the tent up. And then 10 to 15,000 people would turn up to see the show. Then they'd perform, often risking their lives doing things like the bicycle wheel of death, feet up in the air with no safety lines. Then they'd tear the whole thing down again, get back on the train and travel to the next city. So that was hard work. And I was so fascinated by the fact that used to happen. 1,200 people, 700 animals on a daily basis, moving them from town to town. So Act 1 in the show does sort of take people behind the scenes before the show really starts. It's still full of incredible acts, but it's sort of set in the kind of...
You get that atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. So you sort of see the tent going up, and you see the sideshow, and you see all the sort of weird and crazy things. We've got this amazing knife sir that throws knives at this rather unfortunate girl, and some other really crazy things that people haven't seen before.
And in the second act, then, you bring us back inside the tent?
Absolutely. So the second act really is the circus proper. Although Act 1 is also just filled with acts, but it's sort of done in a much sort of more sideshow way,
yes,
behind the scenes kind of way. And Act 1 ends with the elephants, so you see the elephants being trained, which is just lovely. And then Act 2 is the circus proper, and it starts with a incredible high wire troupe. So we've developed this way of doing high wire in a theatre, which I don't think has ever been done before. It's normally only possible in tents, but we've got this amazing contraption that makes it possible. So there's a huge high wire act. And things like the static flying trapeze act, which hasn't been seen here before, which closes the show. It's just amazing. So some really death-defying things.
Well, you've got a great theatre in the Regent down there, a great fly tower there.
Oh, it's unbelievable. That theatre is just so... it's sort of absolute perfect space for something like this. So we're so happy to be there.
And you got the great garçon from Paris. You got, as you said, the aerial performers as well. That's Leigh's Incredible.
Yes, indeed. And so there's over 30 performers from about 17 countries. So one of the things about the circus back then was they did really try and scour the earth. Because, again, if you live in the middle of nowhere, one of the big draws was seeing people that you'd never seen before from all walks of life. And the company of the circus, often had something like 50 to 60 countries represented in the show. So it was very amazing.
Well, next week, the 1st of December, you're premiering in Canberra, I think, at the Canberra Theatre. And, of course, in Australia is premiering. You're then taking it across to back to Madison Square Gardens, aren't you?
Yes, so it does. It opens in Canberra, and then we go to Sydney Opera House just before Christmas, and then we come to the Regent just at the beginning of January. And then we're doing a huge US tour. So it starts in LA at the Pantages, and it goes across to Madison Square Gardens, and it's fantastic. It's a really exciting tour. So, it's a fantastic company of people. Everyone's thrilled to be here. I have to say, it's not hard to persuade people to come to Australia. So it's a good place to start.
Simon, how would you rate this among all the shows that you've done? Where does it stand out of 10?
10. I would actually...
10 out of 10?
I would say so, yeah. So it's really... It's a very special show for everybody. So we've done a lot of Cirque shows, we've done a lot of magic shows, and so this really does combine a lot of the things that we've been doing over the last 10 years as a company into sort of one big show. And it's taken sort of the best facets of everything. So we're sort of in final production rehearsals here. So there's like a production rehearsal going on as I speak in the next room. And it's amazing. It's a beautiful thing coming together. And these elephants are just, they're beyond my wildest imagination of how they would have turned out. They've affected people really emotionally. It's like having real elephants in the room, which is such a lovely thing.
Simon, I can hear the thrill in your voice, the wonderful, I suppose, vibe that I'm getting from you at the moment is go along and see the show because you're going to be absolutely entertained as the old Circus used to be back in 1903. So let's tell the audience now it's at the Regent Theatre from the 3rd to the 12th of January, and the booking phone number 1300 111 011. That's 1300 111 011, or you can go through ticketmaster.com.au. Simon, I'll see you on the night. Nice to catch up, mate. Thank you very, very much for your valuable time today, and I'll see you at the opening.
Lovely. Thanks so much indeed.
Take care, Simon. Bye-bye to you. What a great show. And it's coming to Melbourne, and it'll be here on the 3rd of January. Now, if you've never experienced the circus how it's really meant to be, go along and have a look at this one, because you're going to see circus like nothing before. Here's the promo that they've produced for this. I'll play part of this. I won't play the ending of it, but just the part at the beginning to give you some idea.
The producers of The Illusionists and the puppeteers from Warhorse are bringing the elephants back to the circus. Circus 1903, a turn-of-the-century extravaganza.
Certainly is, and that's how that promo starts out. So there you are. And it's coming to the Regent.